all those things you've talked about there, it seems, require probably a bit of time to gain the knowledge and a bit of thought and a bit of planning. Hard cash hasn't been mentioned here yet. What would you, is it worth a small business spending money on online advertising? And how would you go about it anyway?
It's worth it if you've planned to spend the money. Basically, if when you put the business plan together, you've included, a component of investment in advertising, then the potential for that being online advertising should be weighed up alongside the equivalent potential of offline advertising. So whatever you think is going to provide, the best return, the biggest reach, the most targeted audience, the most useful audience, basically. Then if you're planning to advertise at all, then weigh up online and offline against each other, and whichever you think is going to provide the best return, that's where you should put your money. If you decide that that's online, there's a whole range of different things that you can then do, which start from the simple things like making sure that you put it on Google and the other search engines. But it also starts at levels like exactly the kind of level that people have traditionally thought of offline business advertising starting at, which is if you think about something like the Yellow Pages. Yellow Pages has always been a classified listing of businesses according to dentists and accountants and whatever. And even within that context, there have always been slightly bigger display ads that that stand within the listings that just draw a bit more attention, that people pay a little bit more for. That's advertising. That's basically the first level of advertising that a lot of businesses have tended to undertake. You can do exactly the same thing online. In fact, you can do exactly the same thing on Yellow Pages online, because the Yellow Pages website allows you to promote your business as being more worthy of attention than those that people aren't paying for. So at that basic level, the offline and online models are actually really, really similar. And you can go up from there throughout the idea of kind of display ads through to bigger ads to big full page ads and so on. So the model is the same. You can start in that same kind of business directory listings, and there are a lot of online business directories, not just Yellow Pages. There are a lot of them. So finding those that are particularly relevant to your audience, or those that businesses within your sector tend to use, and putting some money into those is probably potentially more valuable than just, say, going for the Yellow Pages listing. But equally, for other businesses, Yellow Pages listings and sponsored and promoted listings within the Yellow Pages website would work perfectly well. Over and above that, you start getting into a kind of a slightly different model of advertising online, which is, in some cases, is like the offline model, and in other cases is slightly different. The way that it's like offline advertising is that you have an advert. You have a kind of a box that appears on a page that is not related directly to the editorial content, but which promotes a product. And it's exactly the same as having an ad in a page of a magazine, that you get an ad on the side of a page of content on a website. To get into that kind of thing, you're potentially looking at, depending on exactly where you want to advertise, you're potentially looking at having to plan media and have ads designed and a whole range of other things that most small and certainly startup businesses probably won't want to start getting their heads into, at least for a while. But there's a middle ground which is actually very online specific, which you can't do with offline because it's responsive to the way people interact with the website. And it's the kind of the broad term that people tend to use for it is actually a Google term, which is AdWords, which is that when you perform a search on a site, or when a site, for whatever reason, is focused around particular subjects, as well as the content that you're looking for in the search results or in the page that's displayed, you may also get a series of text-based ads rather than flashy, colourful, standout banner type ads. It could just be a 3 or 4 word headline, a little bit of text and a link, and it could be 2 or 3 of them in a row, directly underneath the search box, directly underneath the search results, whatever. That's the kind of contextual advertising that a lot of businesses do to get attention within people's online experience, so that they've searched for a term within a site. The content within the site that relates to that term will all be listed on the search results page, but potentially some similar or related or associated content elsewhere on the web will also be listed alongside it, and people pay to have their ad appear in a very contextual position. So it's not as simple and as kind of entry level as just a display ad or an enhanced listing in a business directory. It's not over on the level of banner ads on 50 websites in according to the schedule that you've worked out with a media planner. It's much more specific, but it's potentially much more targeted, because your ad will only appear when somebody performs a search for a term that you have identified yourselves as being associated with. But it doesn't require all the creative stuff, because it's just text, and it doesn't necessarily involve the huge scale or planning that trying to get your ad into a big website like a news site or whatever might involve. So there's a whole range. There's a big scale from very simple, very straightforward, all the way to huge, complex, and very expensive. And potentially, any business that's planning advertising will be working along that scale over its lifetime anyway. So starting out small but still getting advertising out there is definitely something that small businesses can do without having to bite off anything too scary or elaborate.